Again, if you have not done so, close the project we were just working on, start up a new project, make sure it's a console app, call it Taxpayer Demo. One word, Taxpayer Demo, with a big T and a big D. Then, if you look up on the screen, you've got a taxpayer one that I sent you this morning. So find that. Copy all of that to the clipboard. Go to your taxpayer demo, and again, right underneath line 5, hit enter and paste that in. And then let's take a look at what we're doing here. Now, just so you know, if you look up on the screen here or on your screen, I changed it. I don't know, maybe this author thinks you have nothing better to do with your lives, but she wanted you to make 12 taxpayer objects. I said 5 was plenty, okay? If you want to make 12, feel free to do so. Just change the 5 to a 12. Every single taxpayer has a social security number, all right, a yearly gross income, and an income tax that they owe. That's all they have. Again, they kept the example simple. So we are to create an array of 5 of these taxpayer objects, and we are to include in there a property with get and set. So we want a get for the social security number, a get for the yearly gross income. But then notice the tax owed is read only, which means the tax owed has the equivalent of a get with no set. Does that make sense? And if that confuses you, I gave you this example last week, but I'm going to give it again because I want you to understand it. And that is, that's like saying 7 times 8. The 7 and the 8 can change. I can put anything times anything else. But once I click this, I can't change that answer. That's what the tax owed is. So after you do a calculation, it's read only. All right? Because let's say I owe $28,000 in taxes. I don't like that. I'd rather owe in fact, not even $2,800. I'd rather owe $280. Hell, let's make it 28. You know, we don't want to allow the person to do that. So what we're going to do in here is it says the tax should be calculated whenever the income is set. Assume that the tax rate is 15% if you've got an income under $30,000 and 28% for $30,000 or higher. Well, hopefully that throws, it sticks a couple things in your head, such as, if I'm going to test 5 of these, I want to test something like around $29,000, one right at $30,000, and maybe one at $31,000 to make sure the rates are correct. See what I'm saying? All right. So that's what we're going to end up doing in just a couple minutes. Now, what we'll do in just a minute is we'll write the gets and sets, etc. We'll put all that stuff in. There's not much to it. We'll put it in a minute. But first, let's create our actual class, and that class is supposed to actually be called taxpayer. All right. So again, we're going to right mouse click on the name of our project, choose add, choose new item, exactly like we did before. It should bring up your class page. We don't want it to be called class 1. We want this to be called taxpayer. Just one word, taxpayer.cs. Okay. All right, and we were already told, well, what does that taxpayer have? Well, remember, we were told that at $30,000, at that point, their taxes go up from 15% to 28%, correct? So let's make 3 constants. I'm just going to call it limit. I mean, you can call it whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. Free this up a bit. Do I have to put comments there? I mean, probably would be a good idea, but hopefully everybody understands based on the names that I used exactly what these things are doing. All right. Now, we will also declare 3 instance variables. All right, that means that each taxpayer that we have will have these variables. All right. So SSN will be the Social Security number. Income will be how much money they made. Tax will be how much money they have to pay on that income. All make sense? All right. So we're told to do getters and setters for these 2 fields. Well, you know how to do those already. So no, I'm not sure what the problem is, but hopefully that's going to figure its way out. Oh, I know what it is. I need to put the word get in here. Sorry. All right. Okay, you're all typing. As soon as they tell you something, you're going to stop typing and remove everything you just typed in. Okay? There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. This is just fine. Everything in here is fine. But remember, can't we just do this? So if we do that, we don't need any of this. But I just wanted to show you how much easier it was doing it that way. You can do it the other way, but it's one line as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines. All right? But there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing it the other way. You'll see it both ways. I'm going to copy this, and this will become my income getter setter. This is a double, and this is income. Now we do have a problem with this one the way it is. This will work except it won't do one thing we want it to do. So please look up on the screen here. In our comment, it said the tax should be calculated whenever the income is set. Everybody see that? What does that mean? That means the setter should call a method to calculate the tax. Does that make sense? Right now, writing it this way, we can't do that. So now we have to actually go back and write it the other way. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt. So when we do the set here, yeah, we want to say income equal value, but we also want to call a routine we did not write yet. We have not written this yet. That's called calculate tax. Again, you all know this by now. We get this squiggly because we did not yet write this. So this is the income getter setter. All right, I'm going to copy this much of it right to there. I'm going to copy that much. And then all I have to do basically is change that from income to tax, and then I've got my tax getter setter done. So I'm going to copy this. Then down here, I paste that in. This will become again my tax getter setter. Tax and tax. I still get the squigglies because I still have not yet written that method. We literally now have about 5 or 6 more lines to type, and we're done with this. Let me go back up to the top in case you missed anything. All right, so taking it from the top, 3 program constants. Limit, which we set to $30,000. Low rate, which we set to 15%, high rate, which we set to 28%. Then we created 3 instance variables. SSN to hold the Social Security number, income to hold whatever they made, and tax to hold whatever tax we're going to calculate on them. All right? Then, since we're not doing anything at all special with our Social Security number, we use the compressed version, or whatever you want to call it. I think they call it auto implemented properties, I think it is. So we're using that. We cannot do that with the income because our set is doing something. And you can't just put half of it in there. It's not how it works. All right? You got to put all of it in, or you've got to do it the other way. Okay? So we've got our income, which is our regular get. So again, please look on the screen. I want you to get this. This right here, those 4 lines are exactly the same as that. Basically, what that does is it calls this. See what I'm saying? It does the same code. It's an alias or a shortcut for it. All right? So then we do our set where we say income is value equal value and call calculate text. Then for tax, nope, that's a bad comment because there's no setter. It's our tax getter. All right. Well, what's left? Well, I'm looking here, and I can already tell I'm missing a curly brace. You may or may not be, but so right now the only thing that's missing is I've got to write that calculate tax routine. And that's it. So I'm just going to say calculate tax method. All right. Private void calculate tax. All right. Now all my squigglies are gone, but I still have to write the code. If the income is less than the limit, so meaning if they made less than $30,000, their tax is equal to their income times the low rate. Otherwise, they made $30,000 or more, and their tax is equal to their income times the high rate. That's it. That's the whole thing. That is the entire taxpayer class. So in just a minute, we're going to go back and we're going to create some taxpayer objects. Now, no one asked this, but there's one very interesting thing about this that you have not seen in these examples before, and that's this. We talked about the fact that methods are typically always private, but we've got a public method that's calling that method. So that we could make it public, but by making this private, this becomes what's referred to as a helper method. It's a method that the set routine for the income needs in order to do its thing. And the nice thing about being able to make this private is we don't have to worry about anybody else coming in here and screwing with it. Pardon my French. All right? Does everybody get what's happening here? If you make less than $30,000, you're paying, what was it, 15%? Otherwise, you're making 30 or more, you're paying 28%. And again, these are just numbers that the author put in. All right? Any questions on anything that's in this particular file? If there are not, let's click our double disk icon to save and go back to our driver. So what have we done so far that's in here? Create a program named Taxpayer Demo. We did that. Declare an array of 5 taxpayer object. Prompt the user. We didn't do that yet. So what you see up there in blue, that's what we have to do in the driver. The data fields, yep, we got that done. The get set, yep, we got that done. The tax should be calculated, yep, we got that done. So what we're responsible for doing in here is inputting the data and then spitting it back out. All right? I'm going to do this the way that most programmers do it, and what I mean by that is we're going to write 2 different loops. One to input the data, one to output the data. Some people think, why don't I just write one loop and read it in, then print it out. Read it in, then print. Don't do that. It can be too problematic to do it that way. It's considered better programming practice to have one loop for the input and another loop for the output. So the reason I'm telling you that is not if, but when you are asked to do this on a test in 2 weeks or whenever the heck it is, all right, that's the way I will expect you to do it. Understood? All right. So let's come into main and start doing stuff. First thing we want to do is we want to create an array. We can call it whatever we want. I called it citizens. You know, there's going to be 5 citizens paying their taxes. Why it keeps doing that, I don't know. Taxpayer, taxpayer. Isn't that nice? Oh. There we go. That's why I did that. Okay. That is creating an array that will hold 5 taxpayer objects. So 5 times we're going to have to ask for a social security number and an income. After we get those 5 times, based on that income, we'll figure out the tax. All that makes sense? All right. Now, no one asked this, but, you know, just watch. Don't do this. It probably would have been better if we would have done this. probably would have been better if we would have said that would have probably been cleaner, all right? Because we really don't want to rip into the code if we can help it, because we may be using that 5. We might be in a lot of places. I don't know. So you're better off actually doing this. Now, you don't have to do that. Since I've done it, I'm going to leave it there. But you can leave it at 5. It's totally fine to do that. All right? I'm going to create a local, a loop control variable that I'm just going to call LCV, and I'm not even going to give it an example. And then I'm going to have a string that I'm just going to be calling entry string. All right? So, declare local variables. All right? And you'll notice right now, if you take a look, what you'll notice, if you look up on the screen here, and you've seen this stuff before, it's just giving me 2 warnings. No errors, but 2 warnings. It says, hey, you got this variable called LCV that you're not using. Hey, you got this variable called entry string that you're not using. They will be used in just a minute. All right? All right. So, hopefully you copied the comment before, so you've got your using static system.console. If you don't, you're going to have to add that line. Because the next thing we're going to do in here is we're going to do a write line. All right. Now, I put a comment in here. Hopefully it'll make sense. So I put a comment here that says loop through the citizens array inputting values for the social security number and income. So that's what we want to do next. So we want to write a for loop that's going to do this. All right? Notice our LCV, that squiggly went away. Again, no one has said this, but, I could see a hand coming up where somebody would say, hey, Jeff, didn't you tell us that it's bad to do this because it's got to calculate citizens.length every time? Wouldn't you have been better off doing this, creating another int variable that's called maybe len that says length equals citizens.length? Because then we could have said here, len. Does that make sense? This means that the computer only has to figure that out once. Here it has to figure that out. All right, this way it has to only figure it out once. The other way we had it in there, it has to do that calculation 5 times. You're making the computer do unnecessary calculations 4 times. All right? It'd be like if I said, Matthew, go up and make sure the lights are on. He'd look at me like I had a screw loose and say, they're on. But he'd do it anyway, probably if I told him or threatened him or whatever. He sat down and he'd say, Matthew, go check if the lights are on. I mean, with the 5th time, he's going to be pretty sure I am nuts. But if I can just say, check the lights once, and then I can ask him 5 times, it's a lot less work on his part. And it's the same thing for the computer. So one of my charges in my job is to say to you, yeah, even though you can do it this way and put a 5 there, you're better off creating a constant. Even though you can put LCV less than citizens.length, you're better off creating that as a variable and then checking that variable. All right? Okay. So the first thing we want to do here is instantiate a new taxpayer object. Well, this is a test for you. You should be able to do this without watching me do it. The name of the array is citizens. All right. It's the current one, so it's LCV. And that equals a new taxpayer. Again, why I'm getting that, I really don't know, but I am. That will, since we're doing this 5 times, that will create, all right, that will create 5 of them because it's inside of the loop. Now we need 2 write lines, or 2 writes, all right, and then we need to do our income one. So we're going to do all that right now. Let me see if I can get all of this so you can see it all at one time here. And again, if what we're doing doesn't make sense, just bear with me for a second here. What does it like? And citizens. CD. Okay. Now, I'm going to take for granted, I'll leave this up there, but I'm going to take for granted that right now, if I said, does everybody understand what's going on? I'm going to take for granted that no one raised their hand. Yet 1 or 2 of you are lying, because you don't. So, I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run it. So notice, inputs. Enter Social Security number for taxpayer number 1. I probably should have put a space there. I didn't, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't worry about that. Enter the income for taxpayer 1. $25,000. Enter the Social Security number for number 2. 22222. Enter their gross income, $250,000. Then do number 3. 44444, 44444, whatever. Do you understand what just happened? All right, first of all, this looks pretty bad. When it says enter this for taxpayer, okay, probably what I want to put after that is a colon and a space. and a colon and a space because it'll look nicer. All right? When you get to that point where what you're doing is you're tweaking a program for aesthetic reasons, you're a programmer. You are. Because it's all the garbage that other people care about that you could give a rat's ass about. You care about, is my logic right? They care about whether or not it's pretty. So notice by just making that change that I just made, all right, and saving it, now, doesn't that look a little nicer? All right, so I just put in something. You know, to me, that looks a little nicer. Now, if we wanted to, I didn't have to put an extra blank line here. Maybe that would have been easier to put all of number 1 together, then all of number 2. Again, that is tweaking a program. That is not writing logic to a program. So where I've got that \n right here, I can get rid of that. All right. Run the program again. Now, enter the SSN. All right. Maybe that's easier because now all 5 will be put together. Number 1 will be put there, then number 2 will be put there, then number 3 will be put there, then number 4 will be put there, then number 5 will be put there. Okay? That's not that big a thing. What I do want you to realize is this. You're all smart people. I think everybody gets this. I don't think anybody's got a problem with that. All right? But you may or may not remember this from something we did earlier. We're putting in that first one, we said that the Social Security number was a string. But the income's not a string. So you can't just say here, income equal read line, because we'd be trying to stick a string value into a double. So we have to read it into a string value, which is what that entry string was, then convert it. What's the problem? This program's going to blow up if we put something non-numeric in. You already know how to fix that, correct? We went through that in other programs. We're not going to worry about that now. We're going to assume the person has a clue. All right? Now, that, all kidding aside, that's sometimes a real bad assumption to make. But we're going to assume that anyway. All right? So, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to grab everything that I just did here, everything. I'm going to, in that, from the word inputs all the way through my loop, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to paste it in right below it. Where it says inputs, I'm going to now put in outputs, and I'm going to loop through the citizens array again, and I'm going to say outputting all inputted values and the calculated tax owed. All right, not a great, it works. All right. Now, as I go through here, no, I sure as hell don't want to instantiate anything. I already got those. Well, this is going to all have to change, so maybe you like the way that I'm doing this, and maybe you don't. I don't know. All right. So, I'm just literally going to grab everything that's in here now. I'm going to get rid of it because I think it's easier for me to start fresh. So I'm going to say write. Oops, get rid of that, sorry. And I'm putting spaces here. It might have been better off. See, there's the taxpayer, not the tax pager. There's the taxpayer. I might have wanted to put a tab there before the Social Security number, and then another tab, and then put in income. And I'm going to stop right there because I want to make sure you get this. this value right here, this, and this value right here, and this value right there, those are placeholders. All right? They're placeholders. That's not going to print. In fact, what we're going to put in here is this. I'm going to write it out, but don't worry, I'll type it in a second. This is going to be LCV plus 1. Why? So it'll say taxpayer 1, taxpayer 2, taxpayer 3, taxpayer 4, taxpayer 5. Make sense? So that's what that one's going to do. All right? This is going to say citizens LCV dot SSN. So it'll first grab the first person's social security number, then the second, then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth. All right? And then, actually will be the big S there. This one that's right here, this one will be citizens LCV dot income. But we'll want to format it so that's nice and pretty, so we'll tell it to put it in currency. Does all that make sense? All right, because we want to have nice output. You know, it's funny. Well, you all know this. My dad died right before Christmas, all right? I used to think he was the most sarcastic son of a bitch I ever knew in my life. But then my older brother started getting older, and he usurped and passed my dad. All right? He is the most sarcastic son of a bitch I've ever seen. All right? But you look at this, and it has to just start making sense. I can make comments. I can say, you should get this, etc. I can be sarcastic to you. But the point is, this just has to start resonating with you. That doesn't mean if you're like, well, it sort of makes sense, but not totally. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That doesn't mean you won't get this. All right? But I told you before, chapters 9, 10, and 11, by far, they're the hardest 3 chapters in the book. We'll get to chapter 12, and you're like, geez, could we have done that one earlier? That's a nice chapter. All right? And the last 2 are so-so. They're not terrible. They're not great. All right? But it's funny because a guy I used to work with emailed me last night, and I emailed him back today, and I told him, you know, he's asking how classes were going, and he was actually my lab assistant at the place I used to work at. So he knows more Android than I do. So we were talking Android. He said, how's your other class going? And I said, well, the first year students, I'm teaching them C#. And I said, they loved it until we got to object-oriented programming. Now when I look at their faces, they're like, can't we go back to procedural programming only, please? No. All right. The good news is what you'll do in fall, those of you who are in the ASP.NET class in fall, all right, we'll be doing virtually nothing with classes. Then we'll come back and look at them somewhat for Java in spring of next year. Okay? And for those of you who will be taking the Web Technologies class in fall, we don't do anything with object-oriented. All right, so let's put in the stuff that we need here. So again, this will be LCV plus 1. Citizens. If you look up on the screen, isn't this nice? I'm not sure if I should be using big SSN or little SSN. So the IntelliSense tells me which one I should use. Now that's all fine, but I haven't written the tax yet. Okay? I've got their name or their social security number and their income. I don't have their tax. I could print it on the same line. In fact, I will. Why? Because I did a right. So I'm still on that line. But now I'll put in a right line here. I think they said tax owed or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And you answered that question when I asked it before. I want a read line here so it doesn't run off the screen. Now, you're all trusting. I'll come right back to it. Let's make sure it works before you start typing all this in. So let's try it. All right, number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They made $50,000 a year. All right. Since they made over $30,000, they should have 28%. So that should be, if I did my math right, they should owe $14,000. The second one, let's say they made right at $30,000. All right. So their tax should be $8,400. The third one, let's say that they made $29,999.99. They should be taxed at the other rate. So theirs should be right around $4,500. The next one, let's just say we'll put in here $100,000. And the last one, let's just say they made $20,000. And there's our outputs. 14. All right, so 50 times 28, 84, which is 30 times 28%. This times 15%. This times 28%. This times 15%. So it looks, at least, as though all of our stuff worked. I guess if I wanted to pretty it up before I've got the word outputs there, I could have put a couple blank lines before it. So \n/n. You don't have to do that, but let me put that there. That's it for the second of 3. Looks like everybody is done typing, but I wanted to just show you something. If you'd look up on the screen here. All right. Where is it? Okay. So we just did this problem. Create a program named Taxpayer Demo. We did it. We made 5 instead of 10 objects. We prompted the user for the data, and we displayed it. The data fields, we prompted for Social Security number. We used a string. We prompted for the gross income. And we figured out the income tax. All right? We did it based on that formula right there. You know what that is. That's what we used for our constants. Okay? Now, that's Part A. You will be responsible for doing Part B. And it says, create a program named Taxpayer Demo 2. Don't do that. Copy your entire folder that you just did and just change the name of the folder. So start with, with the program half done already. Does that make sense? All right. Now, they are to be sorted in order based on the amount of tax owed and displayed again. Modify the taxpayer class so that the objects are comparable to each other based on tax owed. Yeah, clear as mud. At the end of this chapter, the chapter that I lectured on the other day, at the end of this chapter, they talk about something that's called I-comparable. All right? You're going to have to go back and take a look at that before you do that. The other reason that I decided to do this one is we're about to do Part A for number 9. We use I-comparable in there. So you will see exactly how you have to do this. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you've already got the first one of 3 done. The second one we did Part 1. You have to do Part 2. The third one we're about to do right now. All right? Does anybody need this up there anymore? Everybody, you've all, and of course we've all saved, right? All right, so let's get started on this one. We'll go for about 10 minutes. We'll take another break. All right? So I'm going to do a file, and I'm going to close my solution. So I'm back here. All right? And I'm going to do another file, new project. It will again be a console app. This one is going to be called Relatives List. Again, not my name. This is what the author of your book wants. Relatives List, one word. All right? Once you've got that, click OK. That'll put you right here. By now, you're all good enough. You know the drill. I'm going to come to line 5. I'm going to hit enter once. I'm going to go back to what I sent you guys, and there's the relative list comment. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to paste that in right there so we can talk about that. All right. Create a program named Relatives List, which is what we just did, that declares an array of at least 5 relative objects. We're going to do that in our main in a few minutes. And prompts the user to enter the data about them. What data? The data they want them to enter is their name. We're only going to keep it at first name. Okay? Did everybody hear me? Just the relative's first name. Their relationship to you. So I put in, for example, I put in my wife, then one daughter, then another daughter, then another daughter. Then I put myself in. All right? And 3 integers. One integer that represents the month you were born. One integer that represents the day you were born. One integer that represents the year you were born. We are doing no data validation on this. So if you say that you were born on the 87th of month 44, in the year gazillion, it'll work. That's not what we care about now. All right? When we get done, we're going to call this I-comparable thing. And basically, you say, well, how do we do that? We call array.sort. And it's going to sort them based on the first name. Why am I telling you that? When we enter this information in about 10, 15 minutes or whatever, don't put your names in alphabetic order. Did you hear me? If nothing else, put them in reverse alphabetic order. Do Zoe, then Yolanda, then Tammy, then Ben, then Alfred or whatever. So you can see that they will be in ascending order. Make sense? All right? All right, so before we do that, you know the drill by now. We're going to come over here. We're going to right mouse click on our project name, choose add, choose new item, and we're going to make a new class, and that class will just be called relative. R-E-L-A-T-I-V-E. So relative.cs. All right, and hit enter. And there's our relative class. This one, literally, we should almost be able to do before we even take a break. Because 99% of it is just get set, get set, get set, get set, get set. All right? Then we have to write the compared to, and that's 5 or 6 lines. All right? So, this is how I'm going to do it. First field that we have in there is our name. So this will be our name, getter, setter. Oops, big N. All right. There's our first one. I'm going to grab all that, copy it to the clipboard, paste it in again, and now I'm going to have my relationship. That's going to be like, is it mother, is it father, whatever. All right, then I'm going to paste it in again. And this is going to be my month getter setter. And please look on the screen when you do this. Make sure you make that an int. Now I'm going to give you a second to catch up. Those of you who already got that in, copy these lines here twice, and then put day and put year. Day with a big D, year with a big Y. Then we have to write the I comparable, which is like 5 lines, and we're finished. So again, I'm coming down here, I'm copying this. I'm going to paste it in, and this will become day. And I'm going to paste it in one more time, and that will become year. All right. The only thing that's left is to write that I comparable method. This is taken almost directly from the end of Chapter 9. So again, for you to understand that, you're going to have to at least go back and read the last few pages of Chapter 9. You might even get it to work without reading it, but if you get it to work and you have absolutely no idea what you did, I don't know what exactly you've accomplished. All right? Doing it the way they did it in the book. I comparable dot compare to O and return val O return val equals this dot name dot compare to temp dot name return val. Well, I wrote this before and I didn't get this error. I didn't get any error. So I'll tell you what, I'll leave that up there. And it is 10:26. Let's come back at 10:40 and we'll see if we can finish, fix this. And then we will write the main, which is not very long, about as long as the last one was. Maybe a little longer, I don't know. But, and then we'll be done, all right? Gotcha, that's it. Yep. Cool. That should fix it.